Hello and welcome to the One Life Church devotional series where we cover the entire Bible in 20 months. Well, today's chapters are Job 32 and John 20. Now in Job 32, an entire chapter is given to set up a spokesman, Elihu. He claims to be younger than the others. He claims to have been respectful, listening to this big debate, but it also says he's angry. He's angry that the other three weren't able to give Job an answer. He's also angry that Job protested his innocence. A very, very self-assured young man. And this is what he says in verse 19. Inside, I'm like a bottled up wine, like new wineskin ready to burst. I must speak. I must find relief. I must open my lips and reply. I will show no partiality. He's basically saying, I've got wisdom. Wait for it. I'm going to give you wisdom right now. You know what it reminds me of? In 1 Kings, remember we dealt with that king who said, the king of Israel answered, say this, let not him who puts on his armor boast like one who takes it off. What's he saying? Yeah, don't boast before you get into the battle. When you've finished, maybe come back and tell us your war stories, but don't boast on your way in. This guy, for a whole chapter, is letting us know some real wisdom's coming now. So it'll be fascinating to see what he has to say tomorrow. But now, our big chapter today is John chapter 20, the resurrection of Jesus. I'm standing here right now in an excavation site. My daughter and son-in-law are busy building a massive swimming pool, and I've come down to have a look at it. Many people have excavated in Israel and looked and searched for evidence. In fact, some of the best books written on the resurrection have been written by people who tried to disprove it. Let me give you some names. Frank Morrison, Gilbert West, J.N. Anderson, Sir Edward Clark have sifted through the evidence as lawyers, as judicial people, saying, I want to look at how the witnesses were wheeled forward, who the witnesses were. And they've come to the irrevocable conclusion that this is not how false witnesses, false narratives are put together. You don't wield women, not in those days anyway. You don't wield women in those days where it was hugely patriarchal society. Their testimony was not admissible in court as the very first witnesses. What they claimed, the details is not what false witnesses put together. Now, it's important for us to note that the disciples didn't just believe because there was an empty tomb. The disciples believed because Jesus presented himself to them. And they sacrificed their lives, ultimately. Most of them died as martyrs, not moving from the story that they had seen a resurrected Jesus, which is a foundation pillar of our faith. I have a friend that I've met in the Cape recently. He got saved in his early 50s. And the whole way through his life, he was trying to puzzle together the Christian faith and stumbled over this resurrection, saying, it just seems too fanciful for me. And then he realized, Romans 10 says this, if you believe in your heart that God raised Jesus from the dead, if you believe that God, the God who created the cosmos, is powerful enough to raise someone from the dead, you will be saved. And yeah, that's the step of faith. You know, Jesus said to Thomas, he said in this chapter, he said, you believe because you've touched me. Thomas had said, I'm not going to believe until I put my hand in his side. And Jesus allowed that to happen. He says, you believe because you touched me, but blessed are those who believe, who have not yet seen. Talking of you and me. Now, as Jesus met them on one occasion, he breathed on them. He did that. He said, receive my spirit. The same spirit that raised Jesus from the dead was being breathed on his disciples. And then this is what he says to them. He says, I'm sending you like the Father sent me. And he says, this is what you're going to need. Breathe his spirit. He says, whoever you forgive is forgiven. In other words, say, I am sending you out to a place where people are not going to like you. They're not going to love you. They're not going to want you. And you're going to need to forgive them. And as you forgive them, as Jesus did on the cross, saying, Father, forgive them. They don't know what they do. As Stephen did as he was being crucified by stoning. He says, Father, hold this not against them. He says, as you breathe that forgiveness, it's like heaven opens over people. And they will be set free. It's not that your forgiveness puts people into heaven. It's your forgiveness unleashes the resurrection power of God over people's lives. That's what we're called to walk in the footsteps of Jesus. Being crucified, being persecuted, It's not that we have a messianic complex. No, just the reality is, the devil and the world doesn't want Jesus, the gospel of Jesus, to be preached. And so as we speak it, we will also suffer the ridicule and the persecution of the early church. And as we forgive them, Jesus says, I will release them, and my grace will come upon them, and they will be set free. This chapter could be studied for days and days and days. I trust that as you dig into it, God speaks to you.